What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be talking about the Avatar: The Last Airbender live action that just hit Netflix. I have finished the entire series up to this point, but I am going to be talking about the first 4 episodes in this review. I'm going to be discussing what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, what I was just kind of like meh about, because I have some really good feelings about it. I have some kind of mixed feelings about it, but overall, I think the live action did a good job. I know it wasn't supposed to be like the original. They tweaked it. It wasn't a direct one-to-one retelling. They did it in their own way, and while they did it in their own way, they respected the source material enough that it made me feel like, okay, yes, they've done a good job. Even if there are things that I didn't like about it, or I wasn't sure about why they made decisions like that, I still enjoyed the live action, and I do hope we get a season 2 to see where that goes, and perhaps things kind of picking up a little bit more, and maybe adjusting some of the things that didn't work so well in season 1 as they go forward. Overall, for the first 4 episodes, I'd rank it about a 7 out of 10. So still a very positive score, positive review. But there were a few things about the first 4 episodes that kind of like docked it a little bit and kind of pushed it back for me. But the sets were amazing. Every set that they had was impeccable. It was amazing. The designs that they had, from outfitting, everything looked really cool. Yes, the outfits looked very clean, very new, but I think that's okay. Could they have been a little bit more worn? Yeah, but it's fine. I thought they all looked really good. They looked really nice. The scores, like all the music, all the different nods they did to the original music scores and how they kind of implemented that while making it a little bit different so it's their own, was really nice. I enjoyed the music. The cinematography of this show was actually really, really good. I loved a lot of the shots they did. I loved some of the camera work that they put in, and some of like the cut scenes and the transitions were really, really good. So I enjoyed the cinematography a lot. It made it very enjoyable to watch. And the bending fights and the way they did the bending was amazing. Just chef's kiss. It looks so good, so realistic. It fit really well into the live action space. It didn't feel out of place or forced. They did a really, really good job with it. I will say there are some characters that I was okay with some of the tweaks they did. There were some that I was like, what are you doing here? But the characters, for the most part, were okay. My main gripe for the characters is actually with Katara, but I'll save my main argument over that for the review of 5 through 8, episodes 5 through 8. But she is one of the only ones that didn't completely sell me on the character of Katara. So that was my biggest gripe with the characters, but I think a lot of it isn't really to do with the actress. She did a good job. Of course, there's always things you can improve upon, but I think directing wise and writing wise, there was a lot they took from Katara's character that made the character struggle for me. But that's besides the point. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the meh of the first 4. We're going to start with episode 1, Aang. First and foremost, that opening sequence was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I actually really liked that they added some of the start of the war, how they showed the Earthbender getting the news to the Earth King about the Fire Nation going to be starting a war, and Sozin was glad that happened, and that graphic scene was Sozin burning the guy alive, and you get the actual showing of some of the genocide happening to the airbenders at the air temple. I liked it because it added that heaviness right at the beginning, and for people who haven't watched Avatar: The Last Airbender before, but and are going into this not knowing anything about the show, that really sets the tone for them really quickly about what the show's about, what is happening, and I really like that. And also, it is just cool to see that addition. That's one of the additions I actually really enjoyed, because they still didn't do too much with it. They didn't show us everything. They still left some of it to the imagination, like them not explicitly showing the kids getting murdered. They show them hiding behind Gyatso, and then when Gyatso's taken out, it just kind of cuts. So they still don't show everything. They still leave this sense of dread and anticipation for the watchers to look at and to watch and imagine what is happening, without going into excruciating detail, but giving us enough to just kind of latch onto and get us engaged for the beginning of the show. So I thought that was really good. But where I think episode 1 really hits low for me is just the main exposition dumps. I do like that they try to have Gran do the nod to the original opening sequence of events, but it doesn't go over well in casual conversation, and it just went on too long. And at first you're like, oh, they're giving a nod to the original, that's really cool, but then it just feels out of place the more it goes on, and then it just becomes too much and overbearing with information, and it's like, okay, pause. At least that's how it felt for me. For newer watchers who have never seen Avatar: The Last Airbender before, I don't know how that hits for them, because for a lot of us, we have already seen the original cartoon, we've seen the original animated series, and know all of this beforehand. So sometimes that gets a little tricky, because we are aware of all of this information and didn't have it presented to us in just one big heap. For people who already know it, it just feels even more of an exposition dump, and we're like, okay, like we don't need this. Also, on another hand, I think introducing it a little more slowly in little bits and pieces by either showing rather than telling, because I think that's where episode 1 really struggles, is it decides to tell everything instead of showing. Like, they were able to show in that beginning sequence, they showed very, very well what was happening, and then it's like after that opening sequence, it just did a complete 180 flip, and it was like, boom, we're gonna tell everything. They could have done it a little differently, in my opinion. They could have continued to show events happening that show maybe the effects of war, the effects on the people because of the war, and because as the watchers, we are already aware that the air temples have been attacked. We got to see that. So just repeating several times that, oh yes, the air temples were attacked, they're all killed. I get that Aang is hearing that for the first time, but we as watchers are hearing that over and over again, and it's kind of just hitting the nail on the head a little bit too much. I think there was a better way to perhaps show that and kind of let the world building and the world they're in, the situation the world is in, kind of flow a little bit more naturally without just dumping it all on us all at once. So some of the more like, not sure how I feel about it, was the way Aang casually left at the beginning. It wasn't he was running away, it was just he wanted to go clear his head, and then boom, all of this happened and he got trapped in an iceberg. It feels a little bit more, I don't know, I'm not sure why they made that choice. It makes some of the impact of people saying that Aang ran away or turned his back on the world feel a little bit more, I don't know, it might be hit or miss, I'm not sure. Another was how they actually found Aang, because one, Katara doesn't have an angry outburst and calls Sokka out for his sexist comments. She tries to bend the boat to come back to them, and somehow that explodes the giant iceberg behind him. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Because there's no impact to the iceberg that makes it crack. There's nothing. She doesn't see anybody in there and feel like a desperate need to save them and help them out. Nothing there, so I'm not sure how I felt about that, but the effects on the iceberg breaking looked really, really good. That looked really cool. But one of my biggest issues, because of how much of a significance and impact it played, not just in episode 1, but then later on in season 3, was the fact that the ship, that first ship from the raids that had happened on the Southern Water Tribe, was not a place to stay away from. Like, Katara was not afraid to go there, even though she'd been told not to, and that was a big point in episode 1 of, overcoming your fear and, doing all these things. But she's already there and practicing waterbending in a little puddle that's in there. It felt a little weird because in season 3 in the animated series, that plays a huge role in regards of Hama and the raids and everything like that. And while it seems in this one they know about the raids, they knew about the raids in the original, and it seems like they've kind of switched Katara's story a little bit, with instead of her running away from her mother when the raid is happening, she stays and is hiding and sees it happening. So I get that the switch might be why they don't put as much importance on the ship itself and what it means for the Southern Water Tribe and how it impacts Katara. But as thematically, I want to see how they're going to adapt that and use that for Katara's story and for Hama's story later on down the line, because that is a very big plot point in one of those situations. So I'm not sure how I felt about that, because I don't know. I wasn't sure how I felt about it, but they also made some changes regarding how Katara kind of already knows. So I don't know, like, even further when they get to, like, the Southern Raiders, that might be a little bit more tricky, because I'm not sure. That was something that I was just kind of like, about in the first episode. Not my favorite, but also it's there. It's there. I don't know why they made the change, but it's there. I did enjoy some of the interactions that they had, and it gets better as the story progresses. Their interactions start to feel a little bit more natural and a little bit more authentic with one another. At the beginning, you can tell it feels a little stiff, and that's okay, but it gets better as the episodes progress. I think episode 1 is the most stiff acting that we see, and it kind of slowly gets better as the series continues. I did like Iroh and Zuko. I will just go ahead and say this, put it on the record. Iroh and Zuko are my favorite part of this entire live action series. The actors they got for Iroh and Zuko nailed it. 100% nailed it. I love their actors, and I love how they portrayed their relationship and their actions. It was great. But I like when Zuko comes to the Southern Water Tribe. Him and Sokka's fight is actually really cool, because yes, it is more cartoony for Sokka to just get kicked off of the ship instead of them actually coming down and have a face-to-face confrontation. I thought that was handled really well. I liked their fight. Again, the choreography was great for the fight. It looked really, really good. Aang gets taken. He escapes. They changed that sequence up a little bit, but it was okay. I didn't really have any big complaints with that. Then we got the Southern Air Temple in the first episode, and I was not ready for it. They did a really good job being able to bring out the emotions of that scene. I wish there was a little more oomph with, like, Katara yelling out to Aang about being family, that they're family now, with her and Sokka being there. It seemed that Gyatso's memory and what he had told Aang before was what calmed him down this time, which is still fine, but I was already emotional with it, but I guess I'm a masochist because I wanted more oomph, I wanted more emotion. So there's that. But I thought overall it was a good pilot episode. They did a really good job in some parts. Some parts were just okay, and there was a couple parts that I was like, okay, why? But overall, it was a pretty good introductory episode, and it led us up to episode 2, which is called Warriors. Episode 2 was one of my favorites in the first 4. Kyoshi Island was fantastic. Again, like the set design, the place, everything looked so good. Appa looks great. I should have mentioned this like a minute ago, but Appa looks great. Momo looks great. I love them both so dearly. They're fantastic. And we get to Kyoshi Island. But I have to say this. Dallas Liu as Prince Zuko is perfect. Like, he is perfectly encapsulating who Prince Zuko was in the first season. When he is throwing that tantrum, when he is throwing that fit, because Aang stole his journal, Aang stole his little diary with all of his notes, and he's throwing a fit because not just his diary is gone, but Aang escaped. And when Iroh was trying to calm him down, talk some sense, and he turns around and says he ran. I'll have to put my reaction to that in here real quick.
You did. Your notebook needs some useful and collecting. Your unceasing effort is what led him to the Avatar. He ran!
Because I was filming that because I was sending it to my sister to let her know that, you know, hey, the Netflix series, it's dropped, it's here, and I was gonna show her that because I was like, this is Zuko, like, he is acting like Zuko, we're in good shape here. And that part happened and I just lost it. I absolutely lost it. I was laughing so hard because the way he turned and said that, it was like the audacity of this man to run. He is a coward. This ultimate warrior that I have been preparing to fight ran away from me. It's so funny. And I don't understand the hate that the actors are getting, like if their voice cracks or anything like that. But it's like, yeah, they're kids. Kids' voices crack all the time. He's an angsty teenager throwing a tantrum. Of course his voice is gonna crack. Of course his voice is gonna raise an octave or two. As adults, when we feel different emotions and start getting excited, our voice changes too. Like, I don't understand why people are harping on that side of it. It's like, no, it's not bad acting. They're kids. Relax. Leave them alone. It's so funny to me because he was good in episode 1 and I was just like, okay, he's giving Zuko energy. Like, him and Iroh, I'm like, okay, they're giving the energy. I like it. And then episode 2 came along and I saw that, I was like, that's Zuko. That is Prince Zuko. He has the entire essence of who Zuko is. He's got it down. And I love to see it. I love to see him play Zuko. It's so fun. And he nails it. He nails the emotional parts. He nails the funny parts. He nails the angsty parts. He just does a good job. Okay? I'm just gonna get that out of the way. He does a good job. Him and Iroh are like my favorite actors of the series. And I think Suki and... oh, who was it? Suki and Sokka are up there too with how they handled their roles. I mean, all of them did a good job. And again, I'm going to stress this because I don't know if I made it clear in the beginning, but I am not criticizing the child actors for their performances. They're kids. They're only going to get better. I'm not going to criticize them too much on how they played their roles. If I'm criticizing a character's take on it, it's more so from the writing standpoint, not the actor's deliverance, because the actors themselves, actors and actresses, they did a good job with what they were given, and they're gonna get better. So even if at some points the acting was okay, they still made up for it because they had their amazing moments. They had great moments later on, and it was totally great. So, just to make it clear, when I'm upset about a character or upset about certain things that this character is doing, I'm not criticizing the actor. I'm more talking about the writing itself. Just to make that clear. So, with my gripes about Katara, I'm not criticizing the girl who plays Katara at all. I'm talking about the writing of her character. Just to make that clear before we move on, because they're kids. They deserve to still be kids. It's fine. Back to this. Kyoshi Island was fantastic. I loved Suki and her character of her. Her and Sokka together were hilarious. Her trying to flirt with him, but not really knowing how to flirt. And the only way she knows how to flirt is through fighting. And so she's always trying to post up on him. Or she's just awkwardly looking at him because she doesn't know what else to do. Is so funny. Their interactions are great. Sokka had the mannerisms of Sokka. And it was really, really good. There were some aspects, like I wish he was more jokey and a little bit more, but again, like I said at the beginning, season 2 can maybe develop certain things that were left out in season 1, and then boom, it's rectified, it's fine. Him and Suki together were great, and I love the scene where where he's practicing with the boomerang and he's trying to act like, oh yeah, you know, I'm a warrior, I do this stuff, you know, I kill these things, they're deadly and dangerous, yeah, I can show you the basics if you want. Trying to pretend that he's still better than Suki, even though she's a warrior, and he feels like he has to be on her same level, so he presents himself as much to try to make himself bigger, to try to make himself feel good, and then he just constantly gets humbled by Suki, which I know people were complaining about Sokka's sexism being toned down. It was toned down, but Sokka still got humbled by Suki. There was a subtle glimpse of sexism, you could say, in there, but it wasn't as overt as the animated series. I prefer how the animated series did it, because seeing him get knocked on his butt after proclaiming to be greater than Suki is always fun to watch. But here, he still gets humbled by Suki, but it's in a more subtle manner of him recognizing, like, oh, well, she is better than me, she's a great warrior, I want to learn from her. It's a lot more subtle of a take, but I think it still works fine. I don't think it's anything to get up in arms about. I really enjoyed how they played it out. I thought it was good. And I love how Suki just flicks her fan and cuts through all the fruit, and then Sokka's like, well, fighting is how we do it, and she gets into a fighting stance. He starts to do his stretches, and she just takes him out. It's great. I love it. And then they're fighting together when Zhao comes onto the island. The way they fight together was really cool. I loved it. It was so good. We do get some changes regarding the Avatar state, and I don't really have any opinions on it. I think it's fine. I'll talk more about it in the review for 5 through 8. But Aang gets to contact Kyoshi, but only in her shrine. That's the only time he can connect with the past avatars. We also get the addition of Kyoshi's backstory and her history and lore. I really liked that. I thought that was really, really good. We get him talking to her, and Kyoshi, of course, being very strict and just like, you gotta do it. It's so funny. Like, the woman who played Kyoshi did a fantastic job. She did a really good with portraying Kyoshi. I thought that was great. And we get Zuko coming onto the island because him and Zhao end up having to team up because of things that happen, and he's not happy about it because, of course, catching the Avatar means everything to him. So he has to go on about it, and while Zhao is attacking the village, Zuko goes up to where the Kyoshi statue is, and he ends up confronting Katara. It's not much of a fight. He's about to hit Katara with a fire blast, because she had fallen and was cowering down from him because she started having flashbacks of her mother getting attacked, and it was like debilitating her. And then Kyoshi takes over Aang's body, much like we got Roku taking over Aang's body in the original. We get Kyoshi taking over Aang's body here, and I love it. I actually really, really like this addition. It's really cool. And then Kyoshi appearing in front of Zuko, and Zuko instantly wanting to fight. First of all, I'm just like, yeah, that's Zuko. He's gonna try to fight anybody. But I was watching this, and when he came, or when Kyoshi came in front of Zuko, and Zuko was looking for a fight, I was like, buddy, that's not the one. That's not the one you want to fight. Like, just take the L. Just go back to your ship. She's not the one you want to fight. I thought it was so funny. She saves Katara and then goes to the village. Oh my goodness. Seeing Kyoshi fight and that amazing display of the Avatar state, wielding all four elements in a very creative way that shows just how powerful the Avatar can be without just saying, oh, I'm overpowered. She's just taking care of business. She protects the village, protects everybody, gets them all to leave, and then boom, Aang's back. And when he was just like, yeah, I'm fine, I was like, no, you're not, buddy. Take a rest. You're not fine. That was such a cool sequence. I really, really liked it. And one thing that I've noticed that the live action does is they focus on the effects of war, and while hope was a central theme in the original, they're taking hope in a kind of a different angle in the live action, and it's more of restoring hope to people. We see that with the Kyoshi warriors, and we see that again with Boomy later on, is kind of restoring this hope. While that happened in the original, they're taking it in a different angle, in a different way in the live action, of really concentrating on the effects of war, how war wears people down, how it just destroys them, just destroys their spirit, and how that hope is hard to restore, but working at it you can restore it. So I really like how they're handling that and that message getting across. And we get Sokka and Suki kissing at the end, so that's always nice. I'm already rooting for them. They have a great dynamic. They were really good together. So that's episode 2. I thought it was great. And then we get to episode 3, which I think of the 4, episode 3 is the one I have the most qualms with. Because there's just a lot going on. There's so much happening. But we get Azula's introduction in episode 3, which I knew Azula was going to be showing up in season 1. I didn't know in what capacity, but I knew she would be appearing in season 1. While that's fine, I want to see how this is going to develop her into the insanely cold-hearted, calculated villain we see in season 2 in the original. I want to see how they do that with her. She's got a lot of good groundwork. She's got really good groundwork laid in this season 1, and because of her appearance in season 1, I will give this credit. Because of her appearance in season 1, we get to see more of the dynamic between Ozai and his children, and how he's using them against each other, and how he's pitting them against each other to always compete, to always be better, and he's doing it purposefully to incite their growth, I guess, in his mind is what he's thinking he's doing, but he's just really harming his children, and I don't think he cares. But we get Azula, and we get Fire Lord Ozai, which Fire Lord Ozai looks perfect. They're Daniel Day Kim, like, you, perfection. And the woman who plays Azula did a great job with it. The biggest qualm I have with her introduction is that she's appearing in a rebellion where there's a bunch of firebenders who are rebelling against Fire Lord Ozai and wanting to go kill him, and yet they don't recognize the princess of the Fire Nation. They don't know who she is. That didn't quite sit right with me, that she could just walk into their midst and just be like, oh yes, I just happened to work at the palace, and subtly tricks all of them, even though she's the princess and is very vocal about being the princess. It's not like she's locked in the palace all the time. So I wasn't a fan of that part of it, but We do get to see some of the more sadistic sides of Azula. She enjoys watching these people be burned to death. We get to see her kind of anger and jealousy a little bit of, or I wouldn't even say jealousy, more of her determination to be the golden child, her determination to always one up Zuko because she wants her a father's attention more than anything. She's had it her whole life, and the moment he starts to look to Zuko, she's like, no, I can't have this happen. He's doing it on purpose. So we get to see her react to that a little bit more before she gets set loose, in a sense. I do enjoy that aspect of it. And Ozai's Angels, their little trio, I think they look fine. I think they look fine. Anybody criticizing how they look can go eat dirt. I think they're fine. They're a cute little trio. They have, I think they have the dynamic about them. I know they can work on it a little bit, but they have the right kind of air and dynamic about them to make it work really well in season 2. That's all I'm going to say about that. But Omashu is filled with almost too much. You have the Mechanist, you have Jet, you have King Boomy, you have all of these different threads and plot points trying to be crammed into one place, into one episode, and it just becomes a little bit overwhelming. A few things become rushed, so the beginning and conclusion don't seem very far off from one another. And I think that's just a pacing issue that they could have worked on, maybe spread it out between 2 episodes instead of just 1. Like, I would have loved to see Jet and Katara kind of interact a little bit more. Like, their campfire scene, don't get me wrong, the campfire scene with Jet and Katara where they're talking to each other and talking to each other about their sufferings and their past and how they've lost the ones they've loved, that part was amazing. It slowed things down. It got us to get in touch with the characters. I loved that scene so much, and I think it suffered from not having enough moments like that where you're just with the characters and sitting with them and getting to kind of get attached and connected to them as much as we could have. The guy who plays Jet was awesome. He definitely nailed Jet's mannerisms and everything. He nailed it down. He was a great cast. I liked his and Katara's parts together. They were really nice together. I liked how it was him who led them into Omashu. Sokka just instantly didn't like them. I would have liked to see more of Jet and Sokka interacting because of that big moment for Jet, or for Sokka, like in his leadership. We get a little bit of that instead with Sokka and the Mechanist, and the Mechanist kind of providing confidence in Sokka and inspiring him to go after what he's good at, that he doesn't always have to be, you know, what he's been told to be. That part with Sokka and the Mechanist was really good. Again, it was like the Katara and Jet scene at the campfire. That was Sokka's campfire moment, where we got to just kind of sit and talk with our characters and kind of get to dig into them a little bit more. I thought that was really good. While the plot lines were really rushed, it's fine. We get Zuko and Iroh talking on the ship about how they don't like Zhao, they don't trust Zhao, and they're still gonna go to Omashu to see what's going on. They go into Omashu, and it still kind of continues forming their rules in the story that Zuko is still looking to capture Aang. He doesn't like Zhao getting in his way. Iroh is there to support him and kind of help guide him through. We get... I'm sorry. We get the My Cabbages moment, which was so iconic. It was fantastic. I loved it. I'm so happy they did that. It was just great. But we get this street fight with Aang and Zuko, and it is fantastic. I loved it. It was creative. They were fighting with things on hand, like all the like sashes and clothes that they were fighting with, to Aang just throwing random things at Zuko. To Zuko. Zuko being hit by a woman with a fan because he was messing up things in her shop, and he just was trying to avoid her and she just keeps hitting. I don't know why, but that part was so funny to me because it's like the universe is really against my boy. Like, and he's just not wanting to hit this woman back, but he's just like, move, like, quit hitting me. My beef's not with you. I need to get to this kid. It's so funny. And then when Zuko ends up starting this fire and everything, the guards are alerted. Iroh tells him to leave. He doesn't want to. Iroh pushes him aside and basically gives himself up so that Zuko can sneak out. We get to see more of the dynamic with Zuko and Iroh there because Zuko does not like the idea that he is leaving Iroh behind, and he changes his mind about leaving and ends up going back for Iroh. And we get this moment where Katara and Sokka, they're thwarting this bombing. They save the Mechanist, they save the King. They saved them from Jet's plan, and as this is happening, as she's going to find them, what in the Pride and Prejudice was that moment between Zuko and Katara when Zuko is hiding his face and he sees Katara, he goes up behind her, she bumps into him not realizing it's him, and what in the Pride and Prejudice? Listen, my Zutara heart, because all the way back to when I first watched the show when I was a child, and even now, I always liked Zuko and Katara better than I like Aang and Katara. I always have. And then this appeared in the live action, and I was just like, what are you doing to us? It's like, Zuko definitely let his impulsive thoughts win, and when he just reached out like that, they really gave us crumbs just because, and everybody that I've seen who likes Zutara has just been harping on that moment since it dropped, and I think it's hilarious, and I love it. I just love it so much. It's not like a huge moment in the episode, but it caught my eye because I was like, what are we doing here? But I do like, after all of this, the confrontation that Katara has with Jet when he's asking her why she would, stop him. And she's like, no, innocent people were going to die. Like, you can't do that. And then when she attacks him and freezes him, because he had helped her overcome a roadblock, he thinks that that's entitled him to some of her power, or saying that it was because of him. And I love that she doesn't fall for that manipulation when he's like, no, that power is because of me. And she walks away from him saying, no, it's because of me. I love that moment. That was a great moment for Katara. But that's kind of, I think episode 3 ends with like Aang being captured as well. And so that leads into episode 4. Episode 4 is something else. I get that people have a problem with some parts of episode 4. I do too. But it's by far my favorite episode because of Iroh and Zuko. But I'm going to save my talking about them for the last, and we're going to talk about what I didn't like the most, and that was Bumi. Bumi had the eccentric mannerisms of the original. He was able to capture some of his quirkiness and the way he would talk or joke around, and the way he was so nonchalant about things. Like his conversation with Aang when he asked Aang how he's still alive, and then Aang asks Bumi how he's alive, and Bumi goes on, like, luck, good or bad, I don't know, but it's luck. That was kind of funny. I enjoyed that interaction. It was just more how they handled Bumi's character in his actions towards Aang that I wasn't personally a fan of. The tests and games that he did to Aang, while yes, it's playing into their theme of hopelessness and someone needing to restore that hope and going and the lengths you'll go to restore that hope, I get that. But seeing Bumi, who is originally a character that always had hope, that has always held this high regard of respect for Aang, to see him kind of completely flip and be angry at Aang, I get it, but also it didn't mesh well with me personally. Others might like it. I wasn't a huge fan of it. So the only part about the tests or games that I liked with Boomy is when Aang ended up having to hold the two boulders over both of them, one over him and one over Boomy, and Boomy is just like, you have to choose. This is a war. You have to be able to choose. You have to be able to make these hard decisions. This is what we have been dealing with for the past 100 years while you've been gone. Now it's your turn to deal with it. Now it's your turn to make these choices. So make your choice. Make a decision. Who are you gonna save? You can't save everyone. I really liked that part of it. I really liked that part of the test. I thought that part was great. We also get the secret tunnel in this one. I was not expecting secret tunnel in season 1, but they started mentioning secret tunnel and I just automatically start singing the song, and then oh my gosh, the hippies are in the tunnel and they're singing secret tunnel. I was beside myself. I was really happy with that. I know a lot of people have disliked why Katara and Sokka are the ones that go into the Cave of Two Lovers, because they don't like either the implications of it or because they're like, well, it's supposed to be Aang and Katara. I don't mind that they changed it from romantic love to sibling love. It's the bond and love you have for your sibling, because Katara and Sokka don't always get along, and they have this heated argument where Katara is yelling at him, saying that he's not dad, and that really hurting him, and they're having these really rough conversations that they probably haven't had before, but now that they're on this journey, now that they're seeing the world, they are having them. They're being confronted by all of these issues and problems that they're seeing in one another, and those are being faced head on in these fights that they have. So yes, I get why some people may not like that, but I actually don't mind that it's been changed to sibling love can also light their way out of the darkness. I don't mind that at all. And the Badger Moles, finding them being very aggressive until that love is sensed by the Badger Moles, and the Badger Mole leads them out. I thought that was fine. I thought that was a really sweet way to show their growth and development and their trust in one another. So I really liked that change. I thought it was really nice to see them have their moment together to show that they're siblings, but they can fight, but they also love each other more than anything. I liked that. The prison scene with Aang and Iroh, I know I'm skipping around, but the prison scene with Aang and Iroh was really good, with Aang being like, well, I know what kind of a person Zuko is, and Iroh being like, I really doubt that. And then Iroh being taken to this camp where nobody ever returns from. You have Aang again with Boomy, and then Katara and Sokka saving him or helping him. It's fine. I think that could have played out a little bit differently, but it's fine. The biggest pluses of this episode come after Iroh is being taken to camp and he's being treated horribly by this earthbender, and you think it's just everybody hates the Fire Nation, because that's very common. Everybody hates the Fire Nation because of what they've done. So you're like, okay, he's just hating him because it's a Fire Nation guy and he's just mad. Okay. But then we get the story of this earthbender and his brother, and about how when Iroh was laying siege to Ba Sing Se, his brother was 19 years old and he was killed because of Iroh. And when he's asking, is it worth it? And Iroh's saying, I was a soldier, we were at war. That kind of, I don't know, that scene is so good. That scene is so good because it's that accountability, but also that hurt that Iroh feels because of what he's done. That Iroh himself, as much as we all love him, as much as he's changed since then, he was one of the people helping in this war, instigating all these attacks and killing all these people. And now he's seeing, like one of the big themes in this series is, he's seeing the repercussions of his actions, of his part that he played in this war. I really, really like that change. And then when the soldier says, you know nothing of loss. And how dare they hit us with not much as Luten's funeral, which is an addition that I was not prepared to see at all in any way, shape, or form. And then how dare they play Leaves from the Vine behind that. I was sobbing. Like, I had to pause. I had to pause my stream, leave the room, and come back just to catch my breath. And then I played it and I continued to cry. That was so emotional and heavy. And then Zuko talking to Iroh, saying how proud, saying how amazing Luten was, and the thing that Luten gave him, and he was gonna give it back to Iroh because he was like, I don't need it. And then Zuko sitting beside Iroh for the remainder of the funeral. I'm physically unwell. That scene destroyed me. Absolutely just gutted me. I was not ready for it. I was not prepared for any of it. I was sobbing. I could not get myself to stop crying. They did that so well. Oh my goodness. That was an amazing scene. And then Zuko coming in and saving Iroh. And their fight together was so good. And when they beat everybody and the earthbenders down on the ground, he's just telling Iroh to kill him. Iroh doesn't. And he says, we've all seen enough. Like, we've all had enough. I'm not gonna do it. And he decides to walk away. And then the earthbender can't take that. So he attacks Zuko, trying to push his uncle out of the way so he gets hit instead. Iroh's still getting hit in a really bad spot, really being injured, and Zuko attacking and getting them to leave, and he says, well, that's what you get when you show mercy, which... very ironic for Zuko to be the one saying that, just saying. And then they go, and we get another flashback of when Zuko had just received his scar. And Iroh decides to tag along with him. This coming after the funeral flashback and then Zuko saving him just made everything hit so much harder. And then how Iroh just decides to just wreck all of our spirits when, you know, Zuko is talking about, you know, we're gonna be out here for a while. I'm being sent to do the impossible. You may not get to go home. We're gonna be out on sea for a long time. And then Iroh looking at Zuko and saying, everything I need is on this boat. I was done. I was a mess after that episode. They handled that so well. It established the connection between Zuko and Iroh in such a meaningful and impactful way. I loved it. So while the stuff in Omashu might not have been my favorite, I love the impact it had because of what it does for our characters. We get that bonding moment for Sokka and Katara. We get Aang having to face the reality of what war has done to people. And we have Zuko and Iroh bonding even more. And we get to explore their bond and their love for each other. So overall, the first 4 episodes, this is already a very long video. Overall, the first 4 episodes, I'd say is about a 7 out of 10. If I were to rank them individually, I think episode 4 has to be my favorite solely because of the Iroh and Zuko backstory we have. Besides that, I think it'd be episode 2, and then 3 and 1 are kind of like tied with each other because there's things in both of them I like, there's things in both of them that I'm not sure about. Overall, I thought the first 4 episodes were still really good. They were really strong, and it continues to get stronger as the series progresses. I'm really enjoying it. Or I should say I really enjoyed it because I already finished it, but I enjoyed it. There are things I like, there are things I don't like, but that's with any show or any piece of media you consume. There are going to be things you like, things you don't like. So that's my honest opinion about it. I think they're doing a good job. I don't think the show deserves all of the hate it's getting. I understand some of the criticisms and critiques on it, but I think some of them are unwarranted and unnecessary. I think that going forward, especially if they're going to go into season 2 and season 3, what needs to improve the most, I think, is more the writing, more so than anything else, because a lot of these aspects of the show are working. They're meshing together well. It's working in a very positive way, but there's just some things that feel disconnected and some things that aren't quite meshing as well together that I think can only be improved upon as the series goes on. But that's all for this video. I will have my review for episodes 5 through 8 sometime later this week, I think. Yes. So be on the lookout for that. Patreon does get access to this early, so if you want to see these videos before they hit YouTube, make sure you go check out my Patreon link. The link will be in the description. Other than that, again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time, scholars. Bye!